Welcome back, everybody, for our final plenary session for today. I think Sarah was actually a little bit worried early on that there weren't going to be lots of people here for today. But look at this, a wonderful turnout. Thank you very much indeed for coming along to our 4 o'clock session, because in this session we are going to be taken on a practical walkthrough of the new registration and registration renewal process. Our panel is going to explain what will happen and when, including practical guidance on what you need to do to prepare and to apply. So we're going to learn about the audit process, conformance ratings, the renewal application, and I'm sure a whole lot more besides that. The session, as usual, is going to include time for your questions, which you'll be able to submit, as you've been doing wonderfully well via the app, or of course by the microphones here in the room if you would like to. So without further ado, let's meet our panel who've joined us here on the stage, and I guess the usual process of a little hand raise so everyone can identify you as I mention you by name. And of course, first of all, Sarah Kelly, Acting Registrar, Regulatory Operations from the Commission. Roald Versteeg, the General Manager, Policy and Advocacy from Ageing Australia. Christian Hesse, Acting Executive Director, Quality Assessment and Monitoring from the Commission. Ingrid Leonard, Assistant Secretary, Choice and Transparency from the Department of Health, Disability and Ageing. And Sandra Hills, OAM, the Chief Executive Officer from Benetas. So leading the practical walkthrough and the Q&A discussion, of course, will be Sarah Kelly. Please welcome our panel, and please welcome Sarah.
Thanks, Richard, and congratulations on you all for making it back. You get a big gold star to start with. So welcome to the final session for today, the key to successful registration and registration renewal. As Richard mentioned, my name's Sarah Kelly and I'm the Acting Registrar at the Commission. So I'd just like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I would like particularly to pay my respects to First Nations colleagues who are here with us today. So we're going to try something a little different to keep your interest as we head towards the end of the day and take you on an animated journey to illustrate the registration renewal process. So we're going to make it as exciting as we can for you. So as we planned the session, we had a couple of things in mind. Firstly, that what we are hearing is that providers want to understand in practice how the renewal process will work. So we have kept the session deliberately practical and focused on the detail of the registration renewal process, and we've done that from the perspective of a provider. The next thing just to note is that there are lots of different kinds of providers. We know that, and that's going to dictate their registration renewal process. We couldn't cover everything though, so we have focused on an example that we think is illustrative and will have something for everyone in it. It does cover audit, and I know not all of you will need to go through the audit process, but bear with us because I think there's some good stuff in there as well. So the animated journey will take about 30 minutes and all of our lovely panel will be involved in taking you on that journey. And then we will come back to reality for some questions from you. So please get your questions ready as we go through. Now, we've already met our panellists, but I did want to do a little bit of a word of encouragement. When you're thinking about any questions you might like to ask, please make the most of having Roald and Sandra here with us as well, because I think what they can offer you is some really good insight from a provider perspective as well. So let's start by meeting our fictitious provider, ABC Living. ABC Living is a large registered provider caring for 3,500 older people across 35 Category 6 approved residential care homes and 1,500 older people who receive Category 4, so personal and care support in the home, or Category 5, which is nursing and transition care services. They have locations in all 8 states and territories in Australia, including several rural and remote areas and a large metropolitan presence. Their headquarters are here in the foodies paradise that is Melbourne. Very wise of them. Their registration expiry is the 1st of August 2027. Now let's meet Alan. Alan works for us in the Commission's registration operations team. He is busy emailing ABC Living to find out if they intend to renew their registration. In Alan's email to ABC Living, he asks ABC Living to tell the Commission if they intend to apply to renew their registration and in what provider registration categories. Details the period in which ABC Living needs to tell the Commission they intend to renew, and the response time from the provider is normally within 14 days of the invitation. He also includes the period in which ABC Living must submit their application if they intend to continue to deliver funded aged care services. In this instance, the time period is between the 1st of April to the 30th of May 2027. Alan knows that the larger the provider, the longer the registration renewal process. So this initial engagement from the Commission, and I note here that the Commission will always start the renewal process, can be sent up to 18 months before the registration expiration date. That's why Alan is contacting ABC Living in February 2026, even though their registration doesn't expire until August 2027. For a smaller provider, Alan will make contact closer to the registration expiry date.
Okay, over to me. I'm Tom. Let's meet Tom. He started with ABC Living a month ago and he is about to take on his first audit coordination role with a registered provider. Lucky Tom. He starts up his computer, opens his emails and sees Alan's email inviting ABC Living to renew their registration. Look at his eyebrows. Anyhow, given that ABC Living's current registration expiry date is so far away, Tom was not expecting to hear from the Commission so soon. And I don't think you'll be surprised to hear Tom's initial feeling is definitely one of trepidation when he thinks about the audit that he knows is part of the renewal process. Tom is, however, relieved to note that the Commission has provided a dedicated contact person and office to support ABC Living throughout the registration, renewal and audit process. Tom thinks about where else he might get some support. He notices an update email from his peak body and decides to give them a call.
Mic working? Yep. We kindly have Roald on our panel today. So we are talking about some of the support that Ageing Australia can offer its members as an example of the support a peak or member body can provide. There are other peak bodies that work closely with you and we're aware of that. And we also know that not all providers are members of peak bodies. But for the purposes of our narrative today though, I'm going to hand over to Roald.
Tom calls his peak body and speaks with Natalie from the member support team. Natalie outlines the process for registration renewal, noting that both the peak body and the Commission have a range of resources and tools available to support ABC Living through the process. She also says that Tom can call the member support team whenever he has a question, even a simple one, they're just a phone call away. Natalie shows Tom how he can access a range of resources that will be helpful. This includes the peak body's free version of their compliance platform, which contains self-assessment tools for the strengthened quality standards, along with a sample of supporting resources to help providers begin their compliance journey. Natalie also mentions that the peak body's professional development and education team run training sessions to prepare providers for their audit, focused on real-world examples and common issues. She notes that these are run quite frequently and that Tom can jump into one of these sessions to get up to speed. Now, I swear the Commission didn't make me do this, but it's true. Natalie also refers Tom to the Commission's website, noting that they have recently expanded the number of supporting resources. This includes the draft audit methodology, a simplified resource that steps providers through the audit process. Natalie also says that if considering a consultant, Tom should complete as much of the process as he can in-house. This way, if ABC Living decide to engage a consultant, they will save considerable time and money. After the phone call, Tom can breathe a little easier knowing that there are a range of supports and options available to support ABC Living through the process.
So, following Natalie's advice, Tom goes to the Commission's website and finds useful information about the registration renewal process. He reviews the draft audit methodology as well as the Commission's provider registration policy. Tom is now ready to update his CEO, Carol, about the renewal invitation. Together they decide to apply to renew their registration for the same registration categories as they currently provide. Tom replies to Alan's email advising the Commission that ABC Living want to renew their registration across all their existing Category 4, 5 and 6 services and thanking Alan for reaching out early.
After receiving Tom's email, Alan sends Tom an invoice for the cost of the audit that will need to be undertaken to have ABC Living renewed. The fees are made up of a one-off fee for engagement with the provider and its governing body, and a fee to assess each of ABC Living's approved residential care homes and their Category 4 and 5 service delivery. Due to the number of older people they provide Category 4 and 5 care and services to, this assessment is classed as complex from an effort and fee perspective. ABC Living has several approved residential care homes that have historically received a waiver from audit fees due to their small size or remote location. Tom is pleased to see that these waivers have been factored into the invoice from the Commission. Tom arranges payment of the invoices on time within the required 14 days. Back at the Commission, Alan confirms receipt of the payment and advises the Commission audit team that ABC Living is now ready to begin the audit as part of their registration renewal process. So we're just going to take a little pause here with the next slide just to recap on a few of the key points that we've heard already. So first of all, the Commission will always start the registration renewal process by making contact with the provider, so making contact directly with you. For a large provider, this contact may be up to 18 months before the registration expiry date, but it will be much closer for a smaller provider. The Commission will give providers a key contact person that will take them through the audit process. When inviting a provider to renew their registration, the Commission will automatically apply any applicable fee waivers and will let providers know that they are eligible for a fee waiver. Additional support is available through the range of aged care peak and member bodies, and there are extensive resources available on the Commission's website.
Time to meet Jo. She's the audit manager within the Commission's audit team. She will be ABC Living's key contact during their audits. Jo is a highly experienced auditor who, like lots of her colleagues, has significant industry experience. Jo sends ABC Living an email to introduce herself and the audit team and to let Tom know how ABC Living's audits will be scheduled. She includes an audit evidence collection tool for Tom to fill out and information to help ABC Living prepare for the audit. An audit evidence collection tool is a Commission document that providers fill out. It gives Jo and fellow auditors information and evidence about the provider's governance arrangements, systems and processes. And this is what it looks like. And you can actually find it on our website already as well. It's 9 a.m. Wednesday morning. Tom opens Jo's email notifying him about the audit process and the meeting schedule. He can see the first task involves him completing and returning the audit evidence collection tool within 14 days. Jo's audit schedule shows Tom that the audit program is split into two parts. Part 1 focuses on meetings with the governing body and senior management. These are conducted virtually. Part 2 focuses on the delivery of care to check it is consistent with the provider's governance arrangements, systems and processes. This includes interviews with older persons, their supporters as well as aged care workers. This may be conducted on-site and include observations. Both parts of the audit will give ABC Living the opportunity to show how they conform with the strength and quality standards. Part 1 requires the governing body and senior management to describe how they oversee conformance, and Part 2 allows the audit team to see how they deliver care in action. Jo's email also makes it clear to Tom that the Commission's audit team will be available to support ABC Living throughout the entire audit program. Tom will be able to pick up the phone and give Jo a call at any time. Here is a table showing the registration categories and the strength and quality standards that apply to them. You might need binoculars to see them though, I'm not sure. You can see that the different strength and quality standards are applied based on registration category. You can see that different registration categories require an audit against different strength and quality standards. For Tom and ABC Living, you can see that all strength and quality standards will apply for the Category 6 services, while only strength and quality standards 1 to 5 will apply to the Category 4 and 5 services. Tom wants to know more about the strength and quality standards and gives Joe a call. Tom already knows that the strength and quality standards have applied since 1 November 2025, and that ABC Living will be audited against these standards. He understands that each standard has an outcome statement, which is what conformance will be assessed against, actions that demonstrate how providers can meet the outcome, an intent statement to add context, and an expectation statement to outline what older people can expect. Joe tells Tom that compared with the current quality standards in place before 1 November 2025, the strength and quality standards are more comprehensive and measurable to better assess the quality of care. Joe tells Tom that the main changes in the strength and quality standards are that they are increased protections and place older people at the centre, particularly those living with dementia and from diverse backgrounds, are more robust and detailed, providing stronger requirements for clinical care and food nutrition, use clear language and minimise duplication, reflect the new Statement of Rights which will be included in the new Aged Care Act, and expect boards, executive and management to play an active role in ensuring the provider is compliant with its obligations. Joe also explains to Tom that under the new Aged Care Act, demonstrating conformance with the strength and quality standards is a key part of the registration and renewal process for providers applying for categories 4, 5 and 6. The Commission may place conditions on registration if providers can't demonstrate conformance with the strength and quality standards that are applied to their registration categories. The strength and quality standards that apply will not be the same for all providers, and this will depend on the provider's registration category. And under the new system, the Commission will only carry out audits against the strengthening standards as part of the registration process. Joe also tells Tom about where he can get some great guidance on the strength and quality standards specific to his circumstances, which you can see here via this QR code. So let's fast forward in time. Joe reviews the completed audit evidence collection tool and supporting documents to understand ABC Living's governance arrangements, systems and processes, and how they conform with the standards. Joe then completes part 1 of the audit by scheduling and holding 3 meetings with ABC Living. These are virtual MS Teams meetings and include an initiation meeting to discuss the logistics and meet the audit team, a governance body meeting, and a senior management meeting. Joe uses these meetings to further verify and understand ABC Living systems and processes and how they conform with the standards. This is where part 1 of the program ends. Part 2 of the audit program now begins. Tom feels prepared. He knows when to expect the audit team because Joe has clearly communicated the audit dates and the audit methodology, along with the audit schedule and when the virtual opening meeting will take place, noting that all audit activity is now announced. He also feels reassured after going through all the resources available to him via his peak body and the Commission's website. Before each audit, Joe will send Tom a care delivery evidence collection tool, which will need to be completed and returned to the Commission before the assessment can take place. The Care Delivery Evidence Collection Tool collects information on care delivery, and this is also available on our website now for you to look at. Jo and her audit team visit ABC Living's approved residential care homes to assess them against the strength and quality standards. The assessment process is repeated for each of ABC Living's 35 residential care homes. You can see why Alan started this process 18 months out. Jo and her team will also need to assess ABC Living's Category 4 and 5 services. For these categories, they use a sampling approach. This means that not every location will be visited or assessed. Their assessment could also be completed virtually, for example, if services are delivered in the homes of older people. Whatever the order of assessment, Jo will make sure the provider is always aware of what is happening and when. So let's take a closer look at what happens when Jo and her team conduct an assessment at one of ABC Living's approved Category 6 residential care homes. Jo's team starts things off by conducting a virtual opening meeting with ABC Living. The audit team will discuss their review of the Care Delivery Evidence Collection Tool and supporting documents and ask questions about the care outcomes for older people. They will also confirm how they will conduct the assessment, including speaking with older people and workers, accessing electronic care files and information, and when they will visit the site. On the first day at a residential care home, the audit team will seek consent to enter and then hold a brief entry meeting. If ABC Living were to decline consent, then Jo and her audit team would not be able to enter and must leave. After the entry meeting, the audit team will then interview older people and their support people, interview workers, and review files and care documents. Today, Jo and her audit team identify evidence of a minor non-conformance with the strength and quality standards. Jo explains what they have found to Tom at their daily meetings, and Tom agrees to add corrective actions to ABC Living's continuous improvement plan. During the closing meeting for each audit, Jo presents Tom with the preliminary audit findings and conformance ratings for each outcome of the quality standards of that specific audit. Tom and the ABC Living team will receive a preliminary assessment report a few days after the closing meeting for each audit, which outlines the findings and conformance ratings. They're given the opportunity to respond to the preliminary assessment report for each audit within 14 days. In response, Tom can provide evidence of actions taken or planned to address any non-conformance identified during each audit. Jo will review ABC Living's response and may change the non-conformance to conformance if the audit team is satisfied that the actions taken have addressed the non-conformance. The final assessment report outlines the final conformance ratings, including where the conformance rating was changed based on the response and actions taken by ABC Living since the assessment. In this example, Tom's proactive and responsive approach to the minor non-conformance allowed ABC Living to act quickly and correct things. The evidence that Tom gave Jo allowed Jo to change the minor non-conformance ratings to conformance. Who doesn't like a good news story? Well, wait for it, because the story's about to get even better. During the audit program for ABC Living, one of their residential care homes was found to have 0 non-conformances with the strength and quality standards. This means that the home was eligible to provide evidence that it was suitable for an exceeding conformance rating. Tom was excited by this opportunity. There are no extra costs involved, but Tom will need to demonstrate to Jo that ABC Living can meet 3 extra criteria. And these criteria are excelling in active partnerships for better outcomes, excelling in governance and clinical governance systems, excelling in the dining experience. Jo sends Tom the details of these criteria and explains that all 3 criteria must be met if an exceeding rating is to be awarded. If one or more of these criteria can't be achieved, unfortunately an exceeding rating cannot be applied. Once Jo has received Tom's evidence, she will go away, assess, and come back to Tom with another report. If successful in achieving an exceeding rating, she will update ABC Living's conformance rating at that time. This is where the story gets a little sad. Unfortunately, this time, Tom was unable to demonstrate that he was able to achieve all 3 criteria across the Category 6 residential care home that he was invited to apply for. Importantly, though, Tom has ensured that ABC Living's continuous improvement plan has been updated and shared with ABC Living's executive, ensuring that the insights from the audit and the renewal process is improving the quality and safety of the care that they deliver. Pursuing excellence in care delivery is incredibly important to Tom. ABC Living will receive a final assessment report for each audit. In total, Tom will receive 35 residential care home assessment reports, 1 per residential care home audited, and 1 assessment report for the sampled categories 4-5 audit, bringing the total of 36 final assessment reports. It's a lot of reports. So let's pause again quickly and recap. The strength and quality standards apply from 1 November 2025, and providers delivering services in categories 4, 5 and 6 need to demonstrate conformance with these standards through an audit as part of the renewal process. All audit activity is now announced and pre-arranged with the provider. Audits will involve more engagement with boards, executive and senior management. The Commission will advise providers early on of possible findings of non-conformance and will give providers the chance to remedy the non-conformance before they make final decisions. Where a residential care home is found to be conforming with all strength and quality standards, they'll be given the chance to demonstrate excellence against 3 criteria and achieve an exceeding rating. The Commission's website has a huge amount of information and guidance and resources. So, let's see how ABC Living did with all of their assessments. At the end of Part 2 of the audit program, Jo will issue a final audit report to Tom. This final audit report summarises all the final assessment report findings and conformance ratings across all registration categories audited. For the 35 residential care home assessments conducted, Jo and her audit team end up finding minor non-conformance in 7 residential care homes. That means that Tom would not be eligible to apply for an exceeding rating for these 7 residential care homes. Jo's team also finds minor non-conformance in their assessment of ABC Living's sampled Category 4-5 services. The audit program ends once the final audit report is issued. The report summarises all audit findings and conformance ratings across all registered categories seeking to be renewed. Meanwhile, Tom shares the Commission's final audit report with ABC Living staff and responsible persons and the older people who use their services within 28 days of receiving the report. Tom feels proud of his efforts. This was his first time stepping into this role and navigating the process of being audited against the strengthened quality standards and under the new Aged Care Act. Good on you, Tom.
So now we'll return to the Commission. Let's meet Alec, who works in the Provider Registration and Renewal team. As the assessor, Alec gets a copy of ABC Living's final audit report. Alec reaches out to Tom to remind him of ABC Living's timeframe to submit their registration renewal application and sends Tom the application for renewal of registration form along with detailed guidance on how to complete it. Alec receives the completed application for renewal of registration form and supporting documentation from ABC Living. He adds the copy of ABC Living's final audit report to the documents. The Commission's finance area sends ABC Living an invoice for the fees associated with assessing their renewal application. If ABC Living were eligible for a waiver, it will already be factored into the invoice. Tom pays the invoice within 14 days, which allows Alex to begin his assessment. Alex starts to assess ABC Living's application. Alex's job is to assess the application against the general and category-specific registration requirements. The assessment informs the decision by the Commission's delegate on whether to renew ABC Living's registration. Alex's assessment will be informed by the application and supporting documents Tom provided, Joe's final audit report, as well as any other relevant information or intelligence that the Commission holds on ABC Living. So the sort of things that Alec is considering includes suitability, that ABC Living is fit and proper to deliver categories 4, 5 and 6 services and has conformed with the relevant strength and quality standards. Capability, that ABC Living has the necessary governance structures, systems and processes to deliver safe and quality care. Financial viability, that ABC Living is financially sustainable and can continue to deliver services. And compliance history, that ABC Living has a track record on delivering aged care and whether it has previously had any compliance action. All of this information helps Alex understand the ongoing suitability, capability, capacity and commitment of ABC Living to deliver aged care services through each of the registration categories listed in their application. As he considers all of the information, Alex notes a concern with ABC Living's governing body. It looks like ABC Living's board has recently changed and it may not have a majority of independent, non-executive governing body members. Alex calls Tom to explain his concern about the governing body. Tom confirms that they're currently seeking another independent, non-executive governing body member. He outlines to Alec the actions they're taking and the expected timeframe needed to resolve this. Alex sends Tom an email confirming their telephone conversation and gives Tom 14 days to explain how the issue will be fixed. Tom responds within the 14 days, advising Alex that the board will undertake recruitment for 2 additional non-executive positions to complement its current board. Tom will commit to follow up with Alex once this process has been completed, and this will usually take longer than 14 days. In considering this response from Tom, Alec will review additional directors' IDs and composition of the board. Alex completes his assessment and gives this to the Commission delegate. The delegate decides to renew ABC Living's registration for categories 4, 5 and 6 for a 3-year period. However, the delegate applies a condition on their registration because of the minor non-conformances that were found with regards to the strength and quality standards and because of the current makeup of ABC Living's board. The condition makes sure that ABC Living complies with its obligation in these 2 areas and will be removed once they've addressed them. Once the delegate has made their decision, the Commission has 14 days to notify Tom and ABC Living in writing and to update the information about ABC Living's registration on the Provider Register, which is on the Commission's website. This is because as soon as the decision is made, any conditions attached to ABC Living's registration start to apply. The Commission sends Tom a notice via email outlining details of the decision. This includes each provider registration category that the Commissioner has decided to renew the registration for and the reasons for the decision, the registration period, and the conditions to which the registration is subject to. The delegate's decision to impose conditions on ABC Living's registration is a reviewable decision. So if Tom doesn't agree with the decision, he'll have 28 days to request a review. In this instance, Tom thinks the decision is fair and reasonable, and he's happy to work towards meeting the conditions of ABC Living's registration. So let's pause and take, I think actually our final recap here. So the Commission will remind a provider when their application for renewal of registration form is due and provide guidance on how to complete and upload the form. The invoice for the fee for renewal will automatically apply any waivers. The provider does not have to apply for them. The Commission's assessment of a provider's ongoing suitability will be informed by the application and supporting documents from the provider, any final audit reports, as well as any relevant intelligence that the Commission holds. If the Commission needs more information or if there are any concerns, they will tell the provider and give them a chance to address the issue before they make a final decision. Once the Commission makes the final decision on renewal, they will inform the provider in writing in 14 days and update the provider register.
Okay, so before we finish Tom and ABC's Living registration renewal journey, I want to tie things back to older people. After all, older people are the reason that we are all here today. When Jo sends Tom her final assessment report for each of ABC's Living's audited residential care homes, this also triggers a process for the department to update each home's star rating. As you know, star ratings are a useful tool for older people and their families to help them make choices about their residential aged care. Let's meet Sally. Sally is an older person currently receiving Category 4 services at her home from another registered provider. She wants to reevaluate her options and move into residential aged care because it's getting more difficult for her to stay at home safely. Sally uses the Find a Provider tool on the My Aged Care website to compare options for residential aged care homes near her family. Sally remembers reading that since the new Aged Care Act started on the 1st of November 2025, a home's conformance rating against the strength and quality standards is now being included in the home's compliance rating under the Star Ratings program. This change to the compliance rating means Sally can be confident that the homes she's considering are providing good quality care and meeting their obligations. Sally can see that the compliance rating makes up 30% of the overall star rating. Sally and her family feel confident in the home's overall star rating now that the compliance rating takes into account new regulatory decisions under the new Act, as well as conformance against the strengthened quality standards. Sally thinks the inclusion of new conformance ratings, which includes major non-conformance, minor non-conformance and conformance, is a quick and easy way of signalling when things are being done well or where things may need some improvement. Sally can see these changes will ensure the checks that independent commission people like Jo and her team do, such as the audits against the strengthened standards, are reflected in star ratings. Moving into a residential aged care home will be a big change for Sally, and having access to relevant information about her care options will help her select a home that's right for her.
Thanks, Ingrid, and thank you to Sally. That is the end of our very exciting animated journey. I can tell by the silence in the room that you're all thrilled by it. I certainly hope that's the case. I've got a wee clock in front of me, and I can tell you that we've got a nice chunk of time for questions, and I can see some already starting to come through. So please use the opportunity, send your questions through, because the panel is ready, willing and able to answer them. So I'm going to kick off while you get your typing fingers on or hop up next to one of the mics. And I'd actually just like to ask Sandra to talk a little bit about Benetas's journey to get ready for the new audit and registration framework.
Thank you, Sarah. And first of all, I'd like to just thank you all for the opportunity to be part of this important conversation. So at Benetas, our preparation for the Aged Care Act and its associated audit and registration reforms began well before the draft tools or guidance were released. It actually began with the Royal Commission and the recommendation one that a new Aged Care Act be developed. We took early steps to understand the drivers to reforms and participate in task force, contribute to consultations and stay close to evolving directions of the new system, particularly the shift in roles between the Quality the Quality and Safety Commission, the System Governor and the aged care workforce, and in fact older Australians themselves. And I'm going to just quickly go through six areas, but I want to say in going through, I'm not suggesting Benetas has got this all licked and done. We don't. We took a 3-year approach and we prioritised what we needed to do first, and as you all know, in many cases the information wasn't available for some time and still isn't available in some cases, so it's a work in progress. So the first area was understanding the new regulatory landscape. So the new Universal Provider Registration model applies across residential aged care, home care and the CHIS program, and must be renewed regularly based on risk-based categories. At Benetas, we conducted a detailed service mapping exercise across our diverse portfolio. We provide every type of service, ensuring clarity on which categories apply to us. Through the deeming process, we worked with the department to confirm and adjust our registration categories. This included refining our declarations, resolving inactive services, and we had a few, and aligning our risk obligations. So get rid of everything that you don't need to do and get moving. That foundational work has helped us consolidate our obligations across the organisation and has prepared us well for what lies ahead. Now, the second area is audit preparation and evidence requirements. We've started to talk about that today. We began our audit process, our audit readiness, with a full gap analysis using the draft evidence mapping framework, and this supported a deep dive into policy, people, systems and culture. From there, we established an executive working group to lead the change. We called that the Beacon Working Group, which I chair. We like to give things a name at Benetas, go figure. And that looked at things like setting enterprise-wide priorities, ensuring alignment across business units and embedding a consistent change management framework. And we are currently preparing the use of the audit evidence collection tool. We've heard about that today, and also the care delivery evidence collection tools by running internal pilots. Our goal is to normalise audit readiness as a mindset, not just we're doing this for a deadline. The third area is strengthen quality standards and governance enhancements. So in response to the strengthen quality standards, we are auditing and updating all policies and procedures, big job, conducting self-assessments using the Quality and Safety Commission's digital guidance tool, and delivering role-specific training for all staff, including the board members. Our board governance program includes deep dives into the strengthened standards and delivering high quality care, a new board assurance framework, and clearly defined linkages between the board's responsibilities and the provider obligations under the Act. The fourth area is governance, risk and board oversight. So our internal governance model has shifted to reflect contemporary provider accountability. We had a lot of frameworks, and what we've done is we've integrated clinical and corporate risk frameworks. We have internal shadow audits and thematic reviews we undertake, and we have a new reporting cadence aligned to core conditions of registration. Our Board Quality and Compliance Committee, which has been meeting for many years, now receives integrated reports on compliance, consumer experience, risk and complaints, helping it to oversee the system from multiple dimensions. And that has been the outcome of we've had the Quality Care Advisory Body, the QCAB, operating for about 18 months, and that's given the Board the integrated view on our services. The fifth area is strategic systems and workforce readiness. We have invested significantly in digital and workforce systems to support compliance, care management and CRM platforms, governance, risk and compliance tools, and workforce systems aligned to worker screening, code of conduct and training requirements. And we're also strengthening our leadership and frontline teams through competency frameworks, refreshed induction and mandatory training. This is where a bulk of a lot of the work is, and targeted leadership development aligned to provider duties. And the final area is engagement, collaboration and continuous improvement. So we are at Benetas committed to sector collaboration. So we attend all the Quality and Safety Commission and Department webinars we can. We respond to consultation papers and share insights across provider forums. Internally, our aged care reform executive-led working group, the Beacon Group, looks to synchronise efforts across services, systems and stakeholders. Here we have found we are duplicating things, so we're streamlining things, and believe it or not, there are some things we don't need to do anymore. This ensures our response is integrated, strategic and future ready, not just to be reactive. So in closing, we would like to think that we will be leading with purpose. This is more than a compliance exercise. For us at Benetas, it's an opportunity to deepen quality and strengthen transparency and centre older Australians in all we do. So we welcome the Commission's evolving role as steward, and we're committed to being a proactive partner in shaping a stronger, fairer and safer aged care system. So thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. And if people have got questions for Sandra about that as well, feel free to send them through. So I have got some other questions coming through, so I'm going to fire them at the panel now, although some of them I might have to fire at myself. So the first question, I think, Christian, you can take this one, because Christian was previously responsible for our audit function, but seamlessly he's now responsible for our inspectorate function. So first question is, can you provide any further insight into what unannounced visits will look like going forward? Will we get any communications prior? Will there be anything similar to the risk-based questions and information required within an hour?
Thanks, Sarah. It's a good question. So I spoke a little bit in the audit component there of today and referenced the fact that moving forward, all audits will be announced. So they're part of the registration process. They're focused on conformance, systems, processes, governance, and ensuring that those systems, processes and governances are resulting in high quality care for older persons. The Commission will still continue to do unannounced visits and risk-based activity. And the group that I've just moved into, the Risk Intake and Inspectorate group, has an Inspectorate function, which is focused on those both those unannounced visits based on risk, and that might come as a result of serious incident notifications, complaints that might be referred through, media, any other type of intelligence. We've got a very active intelligence and analysis team that refers information through and identify issues that we might take action as a result of, and that will continue to be unannounced. And we also, within that team as well, do campaigns. So campaign work has been a key component of the work that we've done in the Commission up to date, and we've had some very successful campaigns in terms of workforce responsibility and food nutrition, and that continues to be a part of that inspectorate action as well. So in response to the question, yes, we'll continue to do unannounced. In terms of the type of questions and things we ask, will really be issues dependent. So it's going to be really focused on what is the concern that we see, what is the control we feel may be lacking, what is the risk, and those are the lines of inquiry that we will follow when we go on site. So it's hard to give kind of like a general, these are kind of the risk-based questions. Historically in our audit space, we have asked 10 or so risk-based questions during entry meeting. A lot of those questions will now be received through the documentation that we received prior to the audit function, and we'll kind of engage with board and senior management in terms of some of those questions to develop the sample. was a very long-winded answer to say, yes, we will still do unannounced, and it'll be really dependent in terms of what issue brings us to your door as to the kind of questions we'll ask.
Grand. Thank you, Christian. I was going to say, don't put the mic down too soon. The next question is, what happens for a provider due for registration renewal in November 2025? Do we presume that we will be audited under current standards, or is there a plan to push the renewal date out?
So the deferment of the New Aged Care Act has had lots of pros and some challenging cons as well for the Commission, particularly for us how we navigate those providers whose registration accreditation was due to expire between 1 July and the 31st of October. So we've undertaken an activity called an own motion reconsideration. So it's administrative decision making we can make to extend those registrations out past 1 November to make those accreditation null and void effectively. When we developed the registration expiry dates with the Department of Health, Disability and Ageing, effectively there will be no registration expiry dates within the first 6 months of the commencement of the New Aged Care Act. So that then allows us the opportunity. You would have seen today we kind of stepped through what that audit process looks like. There's a fair few administrative processes on that front end that we need to do before we're ready to go. So there will be no expiry dates within that first 6 month period.
Good. Thanks, Christian. Roald, I know your members have been providing some questions, so I might just hand over if you want to ask one of the questions from your members.
Yeah, thanks. So we obviously get a lot of questions, some of which we can help with and some of which we can't. And I'm going to be a bit cheeky and actually ask 2 questions, so my apologies. So there's significant concern among providers, particularly in thin markets and rural areas, about the expectations to meet advanced clinical governance and continuous improvement frameworks when access to skilled personnel is limited. So for Ingrid, what specific actions is the department taking to address workforce and resource challenges in thin markets and rural areas? And for Christian, how is the Commission going to take the local context into account?
Thanks for the question. Look, I think we absolutely do recognise the workforce challenges that have existed across the sector, particularly in thin markets. And in response, certainly, there have been a number of measures and programs that have been introduced to support workforce development. So I'll touch on a couple of those now, and many of these programs I suspect the audience would be familiar with. So the Rural Locum Assistance Program for aged care has been specifically targeted to provide workforce support in rural and remote locations, and is currently actually assisting about 80 providers nationwide. The Capital Assistance Program is another program which I suspect many of you would be familiar with. And it certainly provides funding for capital purposes, including, for example, construction for new staff accommodation, really to assist in that attraction and retention of staff. The Fair Work Commission's decision regarding the wage decisions for aged care workers is something that we would all be very familiar with, and funding providers to pass on those wage increases has been an important part. Other programs such as the Business Advisory Service and the Workforce Advisory Service, both free programs, which providers can access to provide and look at strategies for improving workforce planning. And probably just another thing I might mention quickly is the increasing supply and access to overseas workers. Certainly the aged care industry labour agreements has been a focus, and a great deal of work's been done in that space, and that will actually have the effect of providing more than 30,000 direct care workers over the 5-year period. So I'll pause there.
Thanks, Ingrid. And thanks, Roald, for the question. So you would have seen through the process that we went through in terms of the audit methodology that the Commission is really taking an opportunity to engage at the front, to meet with senior management, meet with the board, and really understand the provider's context. The way that we undertake accreditation audits right now, they're unannounced, and we pop up on site, knock on your door, and that's when really we kind of find out any kind of complexities with service delivery, any challenges in terms of resourcing and things like that. Our new audit methodology allows us to get ahead of that through that planning process, to engage in a transparent way, understand the challenges that provider is facing in terms of particularly those who operate in thin markets, First Nations providers, and things like that, and really kind of, as much as we possibly can, tailor our approach in a fair and proportionate way in terms of how we assess those quality standards as we go through. I think we've historically, particularly when we engage with some providers who are regional, remote First Nations providers, they sometimes say that we're quite cookie cutter in our approach. We apply the same methodology in the same exact way, in the same expectations for Metro as we do in other areas. A new audit methodology really allows us to learn you as a provider, understand you as a provider, both the things, your strengths, but also the areas where you're having some challenging areas, and kind of engage with those in a positive way.
Good. That was your 2 questions, was that right? I thought you were going to try and sneak a third one in there again. Okay, the next question that has come through on the app is, how are the fees structured and who is eligible for a fee waiver? So much to Christian's relief, I'll answer this question. What I will say is that on the Commission's website, there is a consultation paper around cost recovery arrangements, which has got all of this information in it. And it's probably, because it is fairly detailed, so I'll just do a quick whiz through, but there is absolutely information there. The Commission is currently drafting and engaging with government following the consultation that led to the drafting of that paper, a cost recovery implementation statement, which will describe the final sort of decisions around fees. That will be released and made publicly available, I'd say probably in the next month or so, and it will be accompanied by a fee calculator. We got quite a lot of the feedback we got was that people were struggling a little bit to work out what their fees would be for their kind of organisation. So we've heard that, and we're doing as much work as we can to make the fees as clear as they can be, and the waiver arrangements as clear as they can be as well. But just to give you a quick summary, for registration applications, there is a fee for the general requirements section. Remember when we talked about it, we talked about the assessment work we do where we're looking at the suitability of the provider generally, and then we undertake work depending on the registration categories and the service types that people are wanting to deliver services in. So there is a fee just for that general assessment of the provider, and then there's a different fee, and they're obviously smaller for the lower level categories, and then they get a bit bigger as we go up towards category 6, and it just depends on which categories for registration that applicants have put in for to work out what the fee comes to. If a provider is wanting to deliver services in CATs 4, 5 or 6, there is also a fee for the registration audit there. Then for renewal applications, the breakdown is similar. Some of those fees start to get quite a bit smaller though, because we know that we already know a lot more about you. Okay, so we're not covering the same territory again, but it's broken down. There's a fee for the general sort of requirements for you as a provider, and then cumulatively it depends on which categories that you're wanting to deliver services in. Then for audits, again, the fees are deliberately sort of span depending on the amount of effort that those activities will involve. So the smaller a residential care home, as you're probably used to now, the smaller your activities in CATs 4 or 5, the smaller the fee associated with that. So again, it's a cumulative thing depending on what your service offering is and how big an entity you are. And it's all sort of broken down in that consultation paper if you want to have a look at that. There are also fees for some of the applications to seek variations. So fees to remove categories, add categories, and seek approval for a residential care home outside of your normal registration or renewal process. If you're wanting to move into a category that has a audit requirement attached to it, so for example, if you deliver category 4 and 5 and you want to seek a variation to deliver services into Cat 6, there will be a gap audit that's done, and there is a fee for that as well. So from a waiver perspective, the waivers for market entry are the same as they are now. There's also been a proposal to include a waiver for any Aboriginal community-controlled organisations that are wanting to come into the sector as well, and that's a full waiver. Okay, so there's a small change there. They are the same waiver arrangements for if you're wanting to seek a variation as well. Okay. So those, if you're wanting to apply to come into the market, we don't know you, we're not familiar with you, and you would, as you do now, have to provide us with evidence to support those waiver arrangements. So the current one is that service delivery of at least 85% to individuals accessing funded aged care in the Triple M Area 6 and or 7. Okay. So for your actual renewal applications, what we have is we've broken it into two different sort of groupings. So it's probably easier if I reverse here and say, for renewal audits, if you are used to receiving a waiver, those arrangements have been grandfathered, so you will continue to receive a waiver. It's probably the easiest way of explaining the waiver arrangements for Category 6. If you start to operate a new resi care home, we've sort of got a model where we apply the same eligibility criteria to work out if you'd also be eligible for a waiver there. Then for the actual application part and any audit for your Cat 4 or 5, the waiver there is based on applicants delivering 100% of care and services in Triple M areas 5, 6 and or 7, or being in the smallest 10% of the sector, so that will slide with the scale of the sector, the smallest 10% of the sector based on the number of individuals, and they will be full waiver if you meet those criteria. So it's either of those criteria, not both. I appreciate that's not very simple. I apologise for that, but it's deliberately done that way to try and capture or to have as much granularity so that we don't want blanket charging. We don't want to charge you for a service that you don't need. So that's why there's granularity in it. But have a look at the material on the website for more information, or you can come and ask me and I'll talk you through it as well. Okay, now the next question I think we might have a crack at between us, but if we can't answer, we might come back to you afterwards. So the question is, will the provider expiry be aligned to one date in the circumstance of multiple ABMs that cannot be amalgamated? Or will the board and executive have to undertake multiple interviews for each ABN, even though we are one organisation? So I'm not 100% clear. It sounds as though somebody would perhaps like to amalgamate and can't, so I'm not 100% clear on the details of that. I'm going to look meaningfully at my panel to see if anybody wants to have a go. Otherwise, I will have a go. Christian, no? Okay, I'll have a go and I'll see. I don't know if my lovely colleague Rob Days from the department, I'll see him squirm if I'm getting it wrong. I suspect the answer is if you have multiple entities and you're not amalgamating them into one entity, that they will get deemed over into multiple provider entities as well. And that would mean that, yes, we do now engage at the provider level, but if there are multiple providers that you're deemed over into, yes, we would be engaging with the different ones. Having said that, though, we are pragmatic people, and I think that we could probably work with you to try and come to some kind of pragmatic, efficient solution there as well.
Sarah, sorry, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
If you're in that situation, you should have already received correspondence from the Department of Health which deems you into registration categories, and that would be a good indicator. If you've received multiple of those emails, then there would be multiple providers, so it might be worthwhile just considering whether or not that has occurred, and multiple provider registration expiry dates. That could be a good indicator as well.
Thanks, Christian. See, I knew he had an answer there in him. Okay, can you provide any insight into the new provider registration process for sole traders? I'm a sole trader with APRA registration and ABN and appropriate insurances. How will this differ for us? I'm going to No, nobody's making eye contact with me. I'll have a crack at this one as well. So I'm going to answer this in two parts. First of all, from the 1st of November, there will be no restriction on a sole trader can apply to come into the market. The tricky thing is that for the first period of time until we move from still having a single provider model, that entity, if they're wanting to deliver services outside of Category 6, they'll need to still be able to operate as a single provider. So they would need to still be able to meet all of the needs of an individual consumer, and they would also need to be able to deliver care management service as well, which is in Cat 4, I think, from recollection. So there's no restriction on you applying to come into the market, but you need to be able to operate across the full spectrum of care delivery there outside of the residential category. So we will probably come and check with you, because what we don't want to do is charge you a fee for an application that we then know that you may struggle to meet. So we will come and meet with you and talk with you. At the same time, the Commission is going to be doing some work alongside our departmental colleagues to look at how, when we move away from the single provider model, we can welcome those sole traders into the market and have that proportionality in there as well. So we know that at the moment it is a bit more of a process that's matched towards that single provider model, and we've got some work to do in the next little while to look to see how we can make it more welcoming to sole traders. And I know we got a lot of feedback around that in the consultation process around fees as well. And it's an area which, because we will go out for another round of consultation on cost recovery. I've just reminded myself, those arrangements I talked to you about, they're going to be in place for the first couple of years, and we're going to do a much bigger consultation about the ongoing arrangements. And we absolutely know that sole traders and creating conditions that welcomes them into the market is something that we're going to need to talk more about. In exciting news, my iPad has just died. So what I would strongly encourage is for people who've got a burning question at this point in time to make their way to one of the microphones, because I feel very confident that they are still operating, and I've got 16 minutes left. And if you don't, I can just fire random questions at the panel, or indeed Roald's picked up his mic, so he's going to fill in the gap. So maybe we might just pass to Roald, and then if anybody wants to make their way to the mics, that would be wise.
So I can confirm that I did look over and see that was low battery. It's not some Commission trick. It's it did really die. So a lot of the questions that we've seen from members are really around the nuts and the bolts of how everything works. And it's for obvious reasons, because they haven't gone through the process yet. It's a new process, and they don't know what they don't know because they haven't experienced it before. So I've just got a couple of sort of like really sort of practical questions here around how the Commission approaches things. So the first one is, the strength and standards are made up of several key components, including the intent, expectation statements, outcome statements, and suggested actions. However, there's been some confusion across the sector, particularly around the suggested actions. Some providers are interpreting these actions as mandatory requirements rather than examples. So could you clarify what providers will actually be assessed against under the new standards, and what are some practical ways providers can demonstrate they're meeting the expectations? For Sarah or for Christian?
I was going to jump in and possibly hand to Christian or Sarah. Look, thanks for the question. In really simple terms, the requirements of the standards are set out in the outcomes. So it'll be those outcomes that providers will be assessed against, and there'll be a finding of conformance. The actions, they're examples of how providers can demonstrate conformance with the particular standards, and certainly they will be things that the Commission will have regard to in undertaking their audits. But just to absolutely make clear, the actions are not legally enforceable. They're there to assist providers and provide examples of how, as I said, you might demonstrate conformance against the standards. But Christian, Sarah might want to add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Ingrid. I think it's a perfect response. What I would say is that where those it's up to the provider to determine what actions and what systems and processes you need to have in place to ensure that you are conforming against that particular standards. Now, that may be those actions that are listed, it may not be. It will depend on your service delivery type, the way that you operate, all those kind of things. Where those actions aren't put into consideration, or you kind of not putting those things into play, then obviously when we come and do an audit, we'll require information and evidence to you about what other things you put in place to achieve the intent of that conformance statement.
I've been provided with another iPad. Okay, I think this one's a fairly quick one. Can I provide all services in a category that I have been deemed for? And the answer is yes, you can. The one thing that we would say is that if you traditionally have provided a particular service type in the category that you're deemed into, and you decide that you want to start delivering some of the other service types, that you fill out the change in circumstances form and let the Commission know. At very least, we need to update the provider register to show that information, but obviously the Commission's keen to have information about all the services that you are operating in, but you absolutely don't need to. If you're already operating in Category 4, for example, and you want to start to deliver some of the other service types, you don't need to come back in through a registration or a variation kind of process, okay? It's a change in circumstances process. Next question is, how will services provided in Categories 1, 2 and 3 be monitored? If you provide services in, for example, Categories 1 and 4, will you need to provide any evidence for Category 1 when the audit's being completed for Category 4? So Christian, I wonder if you might jump in and start on that.
So we will only audit those services which align to Category 4. So during the audit, you would not need to provide any kind of evidence in the Category 1 services that you provide. In terms of how we will monitor Category 1, 2, 3 providers, that'll be done by our Inspectorate arm, and it'll be in response to those matters and those items that I spoke about before in terms of complaints particularly will drive a lot of that work, but also serious incident notifications and the like will drive that particular work.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the time frame and process for sign-off of any non-conformance? So I'm going to give an annoyingly accurate answer here, is it will depend on the nature of the non-conformance. So if we've applied a condition in response to that, it will really depend what the non-conformance is in relation to. So it could be something that is perhaps something that you could remedy and then provide us with written evidence of, and therefore it might be something that is sort of closed off reasonably quickly. So it will, once the condition is applied, it will sit in a monitoring space for the Commission, and once we have the information from you, we will then go through the process of removing the condition. If, however, it's to do with perhaps more complex or more widespread non-conformance, it may well be that there's a longer period of time and that some of the colleagues in Christian's areas will actually come out on site and meet with you to look at the evidence that the non-conformance has been remedied before the condition is then closed off. A provider is also able to seek to have a condition removed if they think that they've actually done everything that they need to meet the condition. They can apply, they can initiate that process with the Commission themselves as well.
Can I just add to that as well, Sarah? I think historically we've been a little bit slow to close off non-compliance where we've identified it. And that's been as a result of having one single quality assessor workforce that does risk-based stuff, that does auditing work, that closes out non-compliance and things like that. In terms of the structural change that's happened within the Commission to get ready for the new Act, we have a dedicated Inspectorate team which will be focused on doing these kind of activities. So we'll be much more timely in terms of closing out those non-conformances, where historically we've been juggling priorities between risk-based stuff coming in and accreditation expiry dates and things like that. So you should see us much more effective in that space moving forward.
Thank you. This one's keep your mark at the ready, Christian. Is there a template for self-assessment against the new strengthened standards on the Commission's website?
So we have on our website effectively the two forms that I've spoken about earlier today, which effectively breaks down each of the standards and the type of things that we would expect you to provide us in terms of evidence for those particular outcomes in that space. So you could utilise that, as was mentioned, as a bit of a self-assessment to say, yes, I can answer these questions, yes, I do have these things in place, and yes, I am ready to go.
And you went where my thinking went. I wondered, Sandra, do you want to reflect for a moment as to the utility or not of those forms for helping in that process?
Yes, one of the questions I asked that I thought someone here might ask is the issue around, there's some anxiety around the actual interview of the management team and also your boards because, of course, that hasn't occurred in the past. You've had the relevant exec team members being interviewed as well as one person who's got a clinical background. So what I did ask the team here when we were preparing for today is what's available, and I need to go and have a look on the website. And I did. My team are aware of it, but there are draft questions there. I urge you to have a look at, and I would be doing that soon too, so that you can actually prepare your executive teams for the meetings with the Commission, as well as your board, so you can start prepping them and have the answers, and they'll be all ready to go. It's an excellent service, I'm sure, because that makes me more anxious than anything, actually.
Can I just add to that? Like, it's one of the things that we've had, feedback in terms of our level of transparency or not with the sector. Moving forward underneath the implementation of the new Act, we are being completely transparent. All of the agendas for those meetings that Sandra talked about, they're all on our website. You can see how those meetings will flow, who we will invite, and what those processes are. So we've gone through a significant amount of effort to make sure that we're being as open and transparent as we possibly can. So you're ready for the process, so you understand the types of questions that we're going to ask, and you've got responses to those questions, because that makes it a much more efficient and effective process all the way around.
Okay, thank you. Now, Kay has kindly asked a follow-up question, which is helpful because I think it clarifies my earlier answer. So she said, so Sarah, are you saying that an allied health person that is a sole trader of services into aged care needs to apply for registration status? And the answer, Kay, is only if you want to be a registered provider. If you want to provide services to another registered provider, whether that's through an employment relationship or whether that's through some kind of contractual relationship, in which case it would make you an associated provider, you do not have to be registered. It's only if you want to take on the registered provider role that you need to come through and be registered. You can continue to operate without that status as long as you are engaging with a registered provider. So I hope that answers your question, but come and see me if it doesn't. The next question is, will the Commission have a portal for providers to upload evidence tools and supporting evidence, or will this all be done via email?
Happily, we will. So that's an excellent question. So we have a digital audit tool which is being rolled out. We have a version of it now being utilised. Moving forward from 1 November, we'll have a brand new Phase 2 digital audit tool. And effectively what that will do, and historically we've had some providers concerned about sharing sensitive information with us via emails and the like. Effectively what will happen is within that digital audit tool, you'll be fired off a link that you click on that link and you upload, kind of like Dropbox, all of the evidence and information and things like that that are required, and that'll go straight through to the audit team. I can see somebody clapping, so hooray! So that should have some great efficiencies and mean that you don't have to hunt around for a variety of different email addresses to send things, or send 17 emails just to respond to one particular inquiry because you're hitting size limits.
So see, there's some good news stories here as well. The next one, which I think is probably you again, Christian, and if we don't have the answer to this, we'll try and circle back. Local government are exempt from the board requirements. What are the expectations for whom auditors will meet with? He's going to have a go.
I'm not sure if I'm brave enough to have a go at that one. Sarah might need to take that one on notice.
Yeah, I think we probably circle back to look to see how I'm presuming it'll be people who've got the role of decision-making in relation to how the care delivery is done. But I can feel I'm making some of my colleagues nervous, so we can circle back and have a look at that and push that answer
I would say that I know that the department is currently putting together some guidance for local government authorities, who the responsible persons are, where the councillors fall within that definition. And so effectively, if you have a look at that when that guidance is released, if the councillor falls in that definition of a responsible person, then we will probably want to have a chat to them throughout that audit process.
Next question is, will there be examples of the completed AECTs available for reference? Did I get my lingo right there?
I'm sure we can do that.
I'll
take that on
I was
note.
going to say, I think it had 3 votes, so
Yeah.
maybe people need to tell us with some kind of
Yeah.
noise if they're actually interested in that, because it sounds like we can put some effort into it
Yeah.
if people actually think it would be useful. So is it just the 3 people that voted for the question, or are other people interested? Interested. Okay. There we go. That's a bit more.
We did do some test ones or some dummy ones as part of the pilot process where we first kind of implemented or tried these 2 new forms. So I'm sure we'll be able to do that. I'm sure we've got that information. So.
Okay, super. All right, we've got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to do one last question.
Sarah, sorry, somebody's got their hand up at the back
Oh,
there.
have they? Oh, go. There you go. Last question.
Hi Sarah, very informative. You mentioned earlier about director IDs. Is that a requirement for all key personnel or non-executive directors?
That's an excellent question. And as I read that part of the presentation, I thought to myself, I hope nobody asks me anything about this. So thank you very much for that question. And use your mic, Sandra.
Limited by guarantee, all directors need to be, so it's under ACQSC that they will be required to be registered as a director.
But we can answer that in a bit more fullness as well, because I have to be honest and say I don't know. I'm not confident enough to answer you. But thank you for asking me as the final question, and we'll answer that. Thanks, Sandra. Okay, thank you very much to my lovely panel. I hope we have winged you towards the end of day 1 of the conference with joy in your heart, and thank you for coming on this journey with us.
Well, thank you very much, Sarah, for leading us through that practical and also very clearly visualised walkthrough. And to Roald, Christian, Ingrid and Sandra for your excellent guidance and insights, as well as, I have to say, some excellent narration performances. So would you please thank our panel as they leave the stage. Thank you. Now, that brings us to the close of today's sessions, and to all of our speakers today, thank you very much indeed for your contributions. We very much hope that you have found the diverse perspectives, the practical examples and the guidance genuinely useful in supporting you as you move forward with your own preparations regarding the new Act. Well, tonight it is conference dinner, and we have virtually a full house for this evening. The ticketed dinner is being held in the Sovereign Room on level 1, right here in the Convention Centre. If you head around to your left as you exit this room, up the stairs just past the Goldfields Cafe. The doors will open for the dinner at 6 o'clock, but that is for a 6:30 p.m. start. So please do keep an eye out for staff in orange if you need any help with directions, and they will give you a hand. It certainly promises to be an absolutely wonderful evening where we will be entertained, we will be informed, and I'm sure occasionally we will be challenged by Jean Kitson AM, very well known and much loved actor, comedian, author, and a passionate advocate for elders and their carers. And now, just a reminder, in a practical sense, your name badge is your entry ticket for the dinner. So if your badge shows a dinner icon, that means that you are booked in, so please be sure to bring that along this evening. I think all of the dinner tickets are probably finalised now. However, whether or not you're going to the dinner, if you would like to spend some social time with colleagues now, you might want to consider perhaps just heading out to South Wharf Promenade, where there are a number, I'm told, of very convivial bars, including the Pan Pacific Hotel Dock 37 bar, which is just next door. But not long before the dinner happens, because as I mentioned, if you are going to the dinner, we're going to be starting promptly at 6:30, doors opening at 6 o'clock. So have a lovely evening for those of you leaving us. For the rest of you, I will see you at 6:30 as we start the formalities for the dinner. And by the way, the first session tomorrow starts at 9 a.m. here in the plenary room. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.